But you know what gets me? All the Italians, like in New York, they're all 5 by 5, 5 foot wide, 5 foot high. But when you go to Italy, they're all thin.
It's all that walking on cobblestones and up hills.
Understand, I'm still your man with the pork fat baby back below.
Gdayall, and welcome to episode 13. Lucky 13?
Yeah.
Baker's dozen. Everyone who listens knows that Phil and I both love to cook. With that in mind, and only 16 days until Christmas, we thought...
Cookbooks. Why not? You could give them as gifts. You could use it for self-help or motivation. But if you need to be motivated to cook, why would you go out and buy cookbooks, right?
Well, sometimes they're so nice to look at. Like, I read them like fiction, too.
Yeah, I like looking at the pictures. It gives me inspiration.
And can you remember when you first came here, like me, it was that long ago, it was pre-internet. The children can't remember that.
That's right. Yeah, you couldn't find what you needed to cook unless you had the cookbook.
That's exactly right. And the libraries didn't have too many American recipes books in them. So it's what you brought with you. Or my mother used to cut out articles and send them to you.
Yeah, or on your trip back.
Yes.
That has happened to me a number of times.
I've been
loading down a suitcase with books, cookbooks.
I've been in trouble myself. Brendan, I just had to sneak a few in occasionally. He's like, what's that? And it's nothing. Don't worry about it. Yeah. And another thing, if you like baking, like I love cooking and baking, but I like baking probably the most, it's a science. So you need to be pretty exacting in the base recipe. You can change flavors, but you can't change your leavenings and all those sort of things. So you really need good base recipes for that, where I think cooking's...
Yeah, cooking, you could be more adventurous, I guess
right.
Is a good word. Because as you say, like with baking, if you don't get it right, it ain't going to rise. It's going to be flat. It's going to be crumbly. There's too many things to go wrong with it. That's why I don't bake.
That's why I call it therapy. I need to work my way through it.
Yeah, my thing of baking is pancakes. That's about the extent of my baking.
It's cooking baking. I get that.
Yeah.
I actually will get, if I want to make a chicken recipe, for example, I might get 3 books out with the same recipe, 3 different authors, and then combine what I think is the best of all of them.
Yeah. Well, I do the same thing, but there's one recipe, and we'll talk about it later.
Yes.
Okay, when we go through things. But there's one recipe that I try to copy, and no matter which one I use, fails.
Maybe we need to have a cook-off, and we could do it. We could work together and see if it'll come out. Now, we do fun facts here, but Phil...
Our last fun fact from last week, the true fun fact, and I don't think it was fun for the people that were yelling, fryer, fire, fryer, fire, as the turkey burned to a crisp and the house went with it.
Oh, several houses. Yeah, so now we've gone to a news break today. So what's today? Something special happened in Colorado.
Ooh, well, it had to do with 420?
Well, actually, no.
No, but I think everybody, when we get to it, was pretty high there because, hey, dude, look at the line. Yeah.
And they're still going. So an In-N-Out burger opened in Colorado, and people waited in line in their cars for
14 hours. I could never wait for anything for 14 hours. It's bad enough being on an airplane for 14 hours. And waiting to go to the toilet on the airplane, for 5 minutes. But for 14 hours, they got to be high. They probably had the dispensary alongside or a moving one, like the Good Humor truck, coming by.
Cigarettes.
Joints,
Whatever you need. But I love In-N-Out. But 14 hours is even excessive for me.
Yes.
And we have another story that we are going to talk about later with one of our listeners with a... drive-through as well, but more on that later. Also, there's a few cookbooks, since that's our topic, that we can put in. Now, Nostradamus, I'm sure he had a lot to say about this year.
Nobody ever came out said that he predicted this.
No, we might be a few days off. But not only was he known for his prophecies, he also wrote a cookbook in 1555, the same year he was writing the prophecies.
So it's how to cook goat and sheep.
No, it's got I think he liked his topic. An excellent and most useful little work, essential to all who wish to become acquainted with some special, exquisite recipes. He was a bit wordy, I think, Nostra.
Yeah, but then wouldn't he predict that, look, I'm going to bake this cake and it's going to fail, it's going to be great? Couldn't he predict that?
I don't know. And also there is there's a little bit of controversy, but we think the first American cookbook was titled.
Go ahead, give me the title.
Okay, I need to take a
In
breath.
3 words or less.
All right, this is legitimately the title. Ready? American Cookery, or the Art of Dressing Viands, Fish, Poultry, and Vegetables, and the best modes for making pâtés, puffs, pies, tarts, puddings, custards, and preserves, and all kinds of cakes, from the imperial plum to the plain cake, adapted to this country and all grades of life, by Amelia Simmons, an American orphan.
She was a bit wordy.
This is obviously before editors came in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, then it would have been all you want to know about American cooking. Yeah.
Yeah, fish and all kinds of cake.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, anyway, look, we'll be back in a moment. Okay, so we're going to take a little bit of a pause here, and we'll come back with more cookbooks. Okay, we're back from our break, and now we're going to break it down into like 3 different settings. Okay, my cookbooks, Barbara cookbooks, and Jeanette, who's my wife, and she didn't want to be on the radio or the podcast. So we're going to fill in for her as best we can because she's a cookbook addict. That's all I got to say.
Yeah,
okay?
That's true. We have had many conversations and many shared cookbooks between us.
Yeah, this is where I said before about traveling overseas and coming back with more cookbooks that weigh a ton. And she just keeps on mind. I said, we're going to be overweight, but anyway, we do it. And so my cookbook, one of my favorites, is the Demichi Kitchen. So this goes back to 1993. I got this cookbook off of PBS in New York. We were living in New York at the time. And the cookbook was really part of their fundraising event. So you give them like $25 and they say in the cookbook. Excellent cookbook, great Italian recipes. And that was probably only a little bit of baking I did because there was 2 cakes or pies in there at the end of the book that were just superb. One was done with grapes, and when you cooked it, the smell was just fabulous. Was
the other one the pine nut?
The pine nut?
Yes, I remember you brought that in for me to have a look at. That looks magnificent. And then I'm going to my probably first official cookbook given to me, Christmas of 1989, the Betty Crocker cookbook. Now, that has had generations. Betty changes her face every 10, 15 years on it. But it's in my cupboard. I don't use it all the time. But if I need a time to cook a pie or a basic sort of, I know it's going to work, temperature and time, cookies, my Christmas cookies come out of there. That is so helpful. And it's still coming out. I think I might have to import a couple for my girls.
Now, Jeanette, her favorite cookbook that she keeps on going back to time after time is a very, very old one, right? So she picked this up. The other thing that we do, we go shopping a lot when we're in the States or even over here to like the antique stores and things like that, or if we see a little fair on the road. And she searched for unusual cookbooks. So her favorite one's the American Women's Cookbook. So I guess it's probably, nowadays you can't call it the American Woman's Cookbook. It's just the American Person's Cookbook.
Well, that would be fair.
Yeah. So she puts down that she wrote a little notes for us that she's an avid cook. I wouldn't say an avid cook. She's a baker more than a cook. I prefer her baking than cooking. So we've gone, I know. I'm going to hear it when I get home.
You should too.
Yeah. But, that's her tip on this one here. She has a lot of books that are that old, that from the 20s and even earlier, and a lot of them are shabby. They don't have a lot of pictures, maybe some drawings in them, but they're very versatile if you're really looking for something that you heard about or you're watching a show that goes to that generation long ago. And you say, oh, what were they eating then? You could go back to these cookbooks and find them.
Yeah, and they often used to have home recipes, as in how to get a stain out of a tablecloth, and those little helpful hints as well.
Like hints from Heloise.
That's right.
Yes.
God bless her. Jeanette has also found one of those for me, which I was lucky enough to receive. So that's one of those books I will sit there and flick through.
And it's tied up with a shoelace, right?
It has seen better days, but that makes it even more special.
Yeah, because you know that it's been very well worn. And if it's been very well worn, you know that there's a lot of great recipes in there.
That's exactly right.
Okay, now my second book is a Julia Childs. I know you like Julia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This was also on the PBS thing that I got there. And it's Julia Childs Cooks with the Master Chefs. Now, this is also way back in the early 90s or late 80s. They didn't even use the term Master Chefs. She used that term then. And now it's like, oh, the Master Chefs. Yeah. These guys have nothing to hold next to her. Okay. But her Master Chefs, there was like 6 of them in the book. 2 of them that are featured was Lagasse, Amelia Lagasse,
Yep.
and Lydia. I can't never pronounce her last name, even though she's Italian Siciliano. But Lydia's Kitchen, which you might have seen on TV.
Yep.
She has her own restaurant. Both of them do. And this was launching their careers because this is where a lot of the chefs at the time, there was the only way they could get on TV was basically to do it for free on public broadcasting. And so they put together this book. And again, part of the fundraising, you'd send them, $25, you got the book for free. So that was a little catch. But it was also a great book. And it's interesting when you go back that far, you see these people that, probably only the last 20 years. So it was like a 10-year gap between the time the book came out to the time these people started getting recognized, on TV.
And she loves sharing talent, which is another thing I do love about her. She was sort of like my crazy aunt after school watching I did watch PBS and watch her cook. I do like how, and occasionally you'll see like she'll have Jacques Papon and a few other chefs. I know I said his last name incorrectly because I can't remember it just at the moment. But her love of food really came through. So that PBS was a great start to many chefs' careers and also interest for normal people at home. Just going, I've never seen that before. She did that with French cooking. Now, my second one that I will say is another baking book. It is The Cake Bible by Rose Levy Berenbaum. Now,
sounds like the Old Testament.
There it is. It's sitting across the table from us. It does. It is the Old Testament of cooking. Okay. It's got everything from a pound cake to our wedding cake. I actually took that to our local bakers and said, I want that cake.
Wow.
They had never seen a fondant cake done before.
Yeah.
And so that's the book cracking at the moment because it's been used so much it's falling apart. But what I like about that, that's our wedding cake.
Oh, beautiful.
It's a sciencey book. So this is why it works. This is how it works. And it's probably not the easiest to follow, but you need to sort of read the whole recipe first and then do it. But nothing will fail if you do it correctly. And she also has a pie book, which I don't have, which would be really good for Christmas if anyone's listening, and a cookie book. And Jennifer, who works with us, is a huge follower of Rose as well. So I keep that in my cupboard. I don't take it out all the time, but if I want to make the most perfect pound cake, that's where I go.
Now, for Jeanette, her next one is copyrighted back in 1913.
Wow.
Well, old book. It's the Calendar of Diners. I guess that's diners, right? Not like diner, like a place.
Or dinners. Calendar of dinners.
One N or two N's, I get confused on that. Anyway, but it goes by the story of Crisco. So this is quite interesting. Crisco, when it first started, the book cost 25 cents at the time that she found it in a flea market, I think at the Hell's Kitchen flea market in New York, and she paid $15 for it. But it goes through, it was all geared around Crisco. Now, right. Crisco has a really interesting history to it. Started early on, and it was the alternate from using animal fat, using lard. So their main competitor was lard. So Procter & Gamble, which was the original company that owned Crisco, they came up with using cottonseed oil and putting it into the can. So it was much different than the Crisco we see now. So it was dark, it was smelly, but I guess that's why they kept it in the can. Okay. And then it came across David Wetson. All right.
Mhm.
So David Weston, like Weston oil,
That's
how it
correct.
got its name. He found a way to hydrogenate it.
Mhm.
All right. And doing that process made it look like lard and also kept it from being smelly and known for the Crisco. It was known as the Crisco process
Right.
in the day. So that started that whole thing. So it was very well received. And even now, if you're going to make a cake or a cookie or whatever you're going to make, you're using Crisco.
Yeah, because here the shortening has a taste because it's kofa.
Yeah.
So it has that coconut. Where Crisco has a neutral taste, and also people use it to make mock icing because it's white.
Yes.
So they'll use that instead of butter. And
but the other thing that came about during that time, okay, was Heinz.
Yes.
All around that same period of time in the early 1900s. So they were producing out of Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
And they got the idea, the fellow that, whatever, Henry Heinz or whatever his name was, okay, a production line.
Right.
Well before Ford. Ford actually, he was the first production line in America producing loads and loads of food once they figured out how to preserve it and all this other stuff. And what got him motivated was the rails. Because prior to that, they would have to if you made something in Pittsburgh, have to go to the river, come all the way downstream, get all the way down to where it gets to the Gulf, get on another boat, go all the way around Florida, and then back up to the coast of New York. Taking forever and costing a fortune. So once the Intercontinental
Railroad,
right,
yes,
came about, then they realized I could do this so cheap and send it to the world. No, the world for them, the whole of the United States. So that's where he got the idea. But once he started doing that, to make a long story short, competitors came in. He wasn't too happy about that, and they were all building plants around him. So they were using glass jars, no plastic at the time.
Mm-hmm.
He went out, and there was a barge full of glass jars being shipped from a plant down to one of his competitors or a few of his competitors.
Yes.
And he, somehow or another, it sunk.
Ah.
Okay.
Don't ask questions.
Don't ask questions. I don't know if he was connected or what.
Did he work in the sanitation business?
He might have been, or he had a friend there. But the other thing that Heinz brought to America, brought to the world, is food safety.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was adamant on having food safety that was healthy, was good, and wasn't bogus. And a lot of the people that were producing food at the time were making all these claims, that it will help you with arthritis. You could
snake oil.
Yeah, just snake oil, guys. And he got his son, who had a degree in science, okay, send him off to lobby in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, he brought to 2 senators 2 vials of bourbon whiskey and 2 exact things. He poured them both out for them. Okay.
Yes.
And he said, one is pure bourbon, and both of these are sold in the liquor stores. One is pure bourbon from Kentucky. The other one is bourbon mixed with product from formaldehyde.
Nice.
And which one do you want to drink? And he poured it for them. They both look identical. And he proved his point that food safety, how important it would be. And that started the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA.
Oh, wow.
And there went all the snake oil stuff, all that went out the window. And it's all thanks to Heinz.
Well, to quote Johnny, I did not know that.
Yep. And another fun fact.
Yes.
Those little packets of ketchup that you get?
Yes.
Boy, it's hard to get over here. You got to beg for them.
Oh, I know. You have to pay for them sometimes.
Yeah. Right. They make enough per year for 2 people on the planet. Not 2 people, 2
sachets.
2 sachets per person of everybody on the planet. Almost as good as Corona beer, which is 1 person for everybody on the planet. And it's enough to go back and forth to the moon twice if you put them end to end.
I like that. Okay, now while we're telling fun facts, Alex, 400 for this. I do know when the golden nail was put to connect the Intercontinental Railroad. It was May 10th, 1869. I don't know why I know that, but I do know that. And it's important, and you might use that at trivia one day. Not here, though.
Or BS for it, yeah.
Now, I think... no, it's you, Phil.
It's me,
It's you again.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to run out because I don't have a big list like everybody else. My other one is probably a go-to book. My 2 go-to books from restaurants, okay, is Carmine's, which is in New York and also in Vegas, and
Yep.
so is Rao's, which is RAO apostrophe S, Rao's, or some people don't pronounce it that way, but that's the
It's
pronunciation.
Jerry Seinfeld's favorite restaurant.
Yeah,
He's
and
always there.
The original one seats only about 14 people, and it's the same people that go there all the time, so to get in is almost impossible. But they have 2 outstanding Italian cookbooks, and you just had a treat that we made, the country
Oh.
rigatoni.
That was magnificent. I
Yeah.
I didn't share it with anyone. I ate it all myself. I just,
Lord.
well, I
And
appreciated
Jeanette,
it.
and see, now I'll give points to Jeanette. She made that.
That was beautiful.
Yeah.
So don't
See,
make fun
she can
again.
she can make things 2 cookbooks, okay, properly, as long as she doesn't walk away from the stove. Yeah. Sorry, but that's a bad habit of hers, and she knows that. Okay.
This is not therapy.
No, okay.
This is
But
cookbooks.
It's cookbook. But anyway, those have great recipes. If you've been to either one of those restaurants, you know how good their food is, and their cookbooks really accelerate on that.
Well, I know how good the sauce is because
Yeah.
we sell
the Rao's.
because
Yeah.
I mispronounce
Cost a
it.
fortune, but yeah.
But it's worth it because when you open the jar and you use it, it tastes like really good homemade sauce.
Yes.
And
But-
nothing else here tastes like it.
Yeah,
so
it's probably, for anybody's listening out there that wants to know about Italians usually always make their sauce virgin from scratch, at home. But probably the 2 brands that they would buy and eat is Rao's, and the other one is Victoria.
Yep.
Okay. And they are true Italian sauces that any Italian will serve them with their pasta. And because they are so expensive, the thing to do is to make it like a restaurant. Okay. Cook your pasta. When it's done, put it into a saucepan, put your sauce over to it, put the heat back on, and stir it through. And it extends the sauce and it coats it. And that's the proper way to do it.
Oh, it's beautiful. Now we'll go on to my next one, which was a wedding gift from my dad and my stepmom Jane, and they enjoyed it. It's the Silver Palette Cookbook, and this was actually from 2 women that were caterers in New York, and they had their Silver Palette restaurant, and you said they had some.
They do products too.
Products as well. That is what I loved about it. Is it's the first cookbook I made notes in because I'm very particular about my books. I don't like bent pages. I don't like things in them, but I actually will write. I added an extra clove of garlic, which I write that a lot. Or I like that. And Jane would make notes in it, and she made notes in that one too. So I knew when she had tried a recipe. And I think the first year we were married, I used it a heap. But lovely, just fresh food. And it's a real 80s cookbook. So it's not nouvelle cuisine, but it's not some of the stuff you get now. Everything's from scratch. Beautiful desserts in it as well. So that is one I will always keep. I'll never get rid of that one because I do love it. And I've got a couple. They had 2 others, which I did purchase as well, but that is my favorite.
That's sort of like that cookbook there, because I think we also have that at home. But it's also like, what's the name that went to prison?
Martha?
Martha, yes.
Ms. Stewart?
Miss Stewart, yeah. It's sort of like it's done in the same style.
Yes, that's right. Not a lot of pictures,
A little uppity.
It was very good if you wanted to have a cocktail party, you wanted hors d'oeuvres,
You
or
want to impress people.
And I break it out at Christmas time, so I'll do a couple little side dishes from it often.
So now going back to Jeanette, one of the other things, and this is like a helpful hint. So she has here booklets and pamphlets. And this is also something we search for, or she searched for when we go back home to the States. And these are generally things that at the time you would send in a self-stamp addressed envelope.
That's right, I remember that.
Back to the company like Pillsbury or whatever, and they would send you back a little pamphlet with maybe a dozen or 2 dozen recipes on it. That's all. And you find them. And they are very, very good because they're usually from things that people wrote into and that their team, their kitchen team, would have devised and improvised and put it into a recipe. One of the favorites that we had there, we bought a Bacardi one, and that was the same thing. It was
Yes.
Yeah, we would send in the thing and maybe a quarter or whatever, or I don't know, whatever, who knows. But it's just a little bitty pamphlet. We still have it.
I'm pretty sure my mom has that one. It has a Bacardi cake in it. Yes.
Jeanette has made a Bacardi cake, and to die for. It is so good.
And if she wants to make
it's a
another
half
one.
bottle of Bacardi. Maybe that's why. Yeah.
It It was a good 70s, 80s recipe where, just
And-
enjoy yourself.
Yeah. And one of my friends that I used to work for in the Irving Trust Company in New York,
Hmm.
he was from Cuba.
Right?
And in Cuba, because Bacardi originally was from Cuba.
Okay, I did not know
And
that either.
yeah, and he never pronounced it Bacardi.
How did he say it?
Bacadilla.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh well.
There you go.
I might say that when I've had too many.
Yeah.
I like those. Like I have a what is it? A gold medal flour one
Yes.
that I've got, and it's got a couple of really. It has some state fairs #1 cakes. So gold medal cakes for
Yeah.
gold medal flour.
Right.
So that is very handy.
And that's a pamphlet, right?
It is a pamphlet. It's just stapled in the middle.
Yep.
Right. You open it up.
Very simple.
And I've got a few others kicking around. I don't know if they do them that much anymore, but I like an old recipe.
Yeah. So when you're out, going, looking at the garage sales or anything else, and you look at cookbooks and the pamphlets, don't pass them up because those are some of the best things you'll find. And probably most people don't even have a value to them. You give them 20 cents and goodbye.
Well, that's right. I just like saying, oh, you don't really want that, do you? I'll just take that off your hands. Now, back to you, because this is my favorite cuisine. So,
Oh, the
tell me.
Mexican?
Yes.
Rick Bayless. Now, we'll talk about a little bit more about Rick Bayless later.
Mm.
Rick Bayless, we had his products here, okay, with Red Fork
We
and Fonterra, and great salsas, great foods. And unfortunately, I guess money gets in the way of things. He sold it out to a big company. And then they said, no, we're not sending it overseas anymore. And there went those products up the door.
And they
it
were
was
the
so good.
best.
Yes.
They were the best, and people still
Yeah.
ask for them.
Yeah, and Rick was the type of guy, he did his homework. He spent many, many years in each region of Mexico to learn Mexican cooking. And his cookbooks reflect that, of what regions they're from. Because they're just like everywhere else, like in America, go to one region, it tastes different than another region.
Absolutely.
It's the same thing in Mexico.
Well, and same with Mexican cooking and Italian cooking. Like looking through some of his stuff that he did, there are things I had never had because my Mexican influence is the people that are in my part of California that were cooking.
Yes.
So I didn't see some of the other regions. So I found it really interesting and really fresh, really fresh food. So when I used all of his products, the salsas were fantastic too. But I love a good fresh salsa.
But now salsa, well, we found some.
We did.
Yeah, we got fresh salsa like you would find at your local bodega or whatever. Bodega. They don't have bodegas in California. No, that's
we just have a
it's
market.
only on the East Coast.
That's right. I always thought, why did they
that's
call
the
it that?
Caribbean things, yeah. So, but if you go to El Pollo Loco or if you go to a nice Mexican restaurant, there's always a salsa bar and fresh salsa. And we have found a guy here locally that makes fresh salsa, Richie's. Yeah.
Actually, we had a tub of that for our dinner last night.
It is so
fantastic.
good. It is so true to what salsa should be. Not the salsa that you buy over here
Stewed.
that tastes like ketchup. And if you want ketchup, buy ketchup. Or if, unfortunately, I like Aldi, but if you go to Aldi, you look at this salsa, you know where it's made?
Where?
Belgium.
Well,
What the hell does Belgium have to
Can't
do
get-
with Mexico?
I can't get further away.
It's like, the Pace commercial, This is made in New York City. Yeah.
Well, we have to make sure we have to speak to him one day because I absolutely want to eat all the food because the salsa is, I said it like you, salsa is how I say it, is magnificent.
Not like seltzer, it's salsa.
Now we've busted into another Seinfeld episode,
Okay,
George.
all right.
Now I am going on to my next one, which is sort of a category. Community cookbooks. So this is what would be from the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. I've got them all 80s, where your local church, your school, your scout group, my mom, where she worked, they had a scholarship fund that they'd raise money and everyone would put their recipes in and they would have their name on it. And there was always one idiot that would put one in for elephant stew. One elephant, add water. I was just like... Anyway, I have some of the best recipes. So my mother must love me so much because she gave me her Stockton Buddhists Women's Association cookbook. And it has the best sugar cookie recipe. and there's nothing that tastes like it. I break it out every year for Christmas. It's sort of crunchy and beautiful. And also because our Buddhist community, we have a huge Japanese community in the city I'm from. So there's really good Japanese food in there. And the festival goes for 3 days and all the recipes from all the foods are in there. That one, and I also have the Byron Methodist Cookbook, which my Aunt Agnes has a recipe in, and that has every Jell-O mold that you want.
Not going there. Not going there.
And lots of cakes and your homemade stuff. It's real meat and potatoes, and occasionally someone might get a bit fancy with some strange ingredient. But that's entertainment as well. But if I know if I've got to make a cookie, I know if I grab one of those books, I can trust that recipe. Our primary school that our kids went to, we had one once, and I put my mom's stew recipe in it. And my friend Liz, she still says we use Grandma Leslie's stew recipe, and they make burritos with it the next day.
Ooh.
So those I find tell you, the area you're from. I love reading the people's names, like Norma and Minerva was another one I saw. Some classics. And I probably have about 10, and those are the sort of things, if I go back home, I'll keep collecting.
Yeah, Jeanette has a few of those also. And, like from the Midwest when we've been out to Kansas and stuff. And it's nice because, again, you're finding things that people will bring to a potluck or company's coming, and you got to bring something for a barbecue or whatever. And just great books, And also, it goes back into that era of time. Goes back into that area. That's it's historic.
I love a good beer bread recipe is also another one out of that. Now, Jeanette has a cookbook she let me flick through, and I've copied recipes out of it, and I love it. Her Cake Boss cookbook.
That is, she has made a few things out of there. There's some things that are almost impossible to make. But she has done the 7-layer cookie.
Oh, I love that. I was so lucky.
It doesn't come out very evenly because it's probably something that you got to do 100 times over before you get it perfect. But as long as all the taste is there, so it's like it has the colors of Italy. Mm-hmm. So it's green and red and what's the other color of Italy?
Isn't it what?
But it has all the different colors, each layer, and they're very thin and they're very like an almond paste.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And then apricot jam in between the layers, and then chocolate on top. So good. And the other one is New York coffee cakes in there. So, and your crumb recipe was really good from last week, and she made that crumb cake.
Oh wow! Yep. Oh, good.
And you missed it because you weren't working ready.
Well, I'm sorry.
Yep.
You can always save a piece for me. I'll drive down for cake.
Sean got it anyway.
Oh, he deserves it anyway. Yeah. He's good at that.
Yeah. Now the other one is. We have a lot of Italian cookbooks and the New York cookbook. That's really good. We have this one by Molly Neal. It's a New York cookbook.
Oh, I know what you're going to say because the carrot cake out of that, when Jeanette makes that is magnificent.
Carrot cake, the cheesecake. They have things in there like potato knishes. I've tried making it. Can't get the outside correct yet, but I always get the inside really, really good. How they do the potatoes. You need a schmaltz. That's what it is. Schmaltz is different than schmucks.
Yes, you need to get that chicken skin rendered down, get the chicken fat.
Just the chicken fat. And also, speaking of chicken fat, chicken livers, chopped chicken liver, Jewish delicacy. So good if it's creamy. It's good. Beautiful. Probably not healthy for you, but who cares?
Oh, it's full of iron. Yeah. That's it's all right.
When I worked at the bakery, all right, Fanny was Manny. Manny was the boss. He owned it.
Yeah.
It was Manny and Fanny. Quarkstein. So Fanny used to come down and she used to make chopped chicken liver, put on like Ritz crackers, and then get thinly sliced olives with the pimento in it.
Oh,
and
nice.
Slice it, a little thin slice on top of it. Oh, you lose your mind.
I'm now hungry. If my stomach growls, I'm sorry. I apologize. Now, I'll have to go with, I have a classic cooking with Coca-Cola that I love. I use that. There's a ham recipe in there that is amazing. But it's sort of like a kitschy, almost like the pamphlet-y sort of book, but it's a bit kitschy. They have a Coca-Cola cake, which is like a Texas sheet cake. And there's also a Coca-Cola Jello salad for you. That's our theme now. But
And I guess you could substitute it with Dr. Pepper.
You could. I wouldn't do diet, but you could do Sprite.
Yeah.
We talked about the Sprite pie.
Mhm.
I find that it made me laugh a little bit, but then I actually started making a few recipes and they all turned out. So it's, I don't know the whole science behind it, but it's fantastic. So I don't loan that one out. Jeanette would know. She has books she won't loan out. You can look at it. But
And speaking of Coca-Cola.
Yes.
Okay. So anybody listening, go on to how you look at old programs that's been on like Foxtel or whatever, where you do the search for it, So which is on right now is the history or what made America food.
Oh, yeah. I want to see that.
Yeah. So they do also a thing on Coke.
Right.
Okay. About going back to that food law from the FDA that they actually sued Coca-Cola because of misleading the public, thinking that because Coke was still in the name and there was no cocaine in their soda. They only did cocaine in the soda for about 7 years. So
Damn it, I wanted my cocaine in my soda.
Yeah. So they actually sued them because for false advertising, which I guess it went away. But the other thing, the doctor who owned the pharmacy, when he died, this other fella came along that really promoted Coke because, again, knowing that he could produce it and send it everywhere. Okay? And it started with franchising, which is the bottling, Coca-Cola bottlers, which are basically franchises. That's how we all did it. He bought the recipe at the doctor's funeral.
Oh.
Right? So he went to the funeral, went to the widow and the son, and offered them $300 for the recipe and the rights. And the son perked up and said, $300 for me and then $300 for my mother. And he pulled out $600 and gave it to him. What a bargain.
Also, I wonder if he worked for the sanitation company as well.
What a bargain. $300 would have been like, I don't know,
a
few thousand now, but
taking advantage of a poor widow?
The widower.
In her time?
Yeah.
Her widow.
So watch that show. Really educational.
I will do that because I love the history of all of this. And that's part of the reason why I got the Coca-Cola one. Yeah. Brendan was in Atlanta during the games and they had Coca-Cola things everywhere. And that made me think of that as well because it's really part of that region.
Yeah, well,
and it grows on. I also have the Sopranos cookbook.
Well, what's wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with it at all. I love it. You got the ricotta cake. You've got...
It's a ricotta.
That's right.
And non mortadella.
Mozzarella. I like... and it has a whole section on, is it gravy or sauce?
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. The people will go on forever. But nothing fails in that cookbook. I have done a whole Sunday making the gravy / sauce. And it tasted beautiful. Yeah. And the funny thing is I had 4 parents. So I had my dad and my mom and my stepdad and my stepmom. And they all ended up being best friends. So they would go and do things together, like when they went to Apple Hill. But they all had the Sopranos. They all loved the Sopranos. And they all had the Sopranos cookbook. So I either stole my mother's or one was given to me. I cannot quite remember, but I love it. And the front page has a picture of Olivia in the kitchen with the mushrooms on fire.
Yeah, and I was watching one last night, and of course they brought out the gabagol, and they go, "Where's my gabagol? You bring it over here." Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, it's nothing like Italian eating and cooking because they just love to eat the Italian. But you know what gets me? All the Italians, like in New York, they're all 5x5, 5 foot wide, 5 foot high. But when you go to Italy, they're all thin.
It's all that walking on cobblestones and up hills.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're not sitting at the front having...
All right. Well, look, I think we're going to wrap up this section. I just, real quick, on a few other things with Jeanette. One is she has a Liberace cookbook that she found.
That.
And that's probably her most valuable one because it's signed also. Okay. And her favorite cookbook that she goes to probably the most times is all the Janie Oliver ones. They're easy. They're quick to go. They match the shows where she watches on TV. She could go to the cookbook and it's in there. Which is a great thing.
And he's very consistent. His recipes turn out. But I want you to talk about one more of hers, which is the America's Most Wanted one, because it's copycat recipes.
Yes. And that's what I was mentioning before. There's one copycat recipe in there that fails me all the time. And my favorite chicken place to go to is sort of like I go to In-N-Out first because Jeanette wants to go there first.
Yes.
And then she knows my next fast food to go to in California is El Pollo Loco. Okay.
Good choice.
Yeah, I mean, if you go over here and you go to that chicken restaurant here,
Which one?
the Peri Peri one.
Oh, Nando's.
Nando's.
Well, it's Portuguese. It's not Mexican. What do you want from them?
I know. It is. You go there, and then if you go to El Pollo Loco, you'll never go back to Nando's again.
No.
First of all, you get chickens that are bigger than pigeons. Okay. You got that salsa bar.
Yes, you do.
Okay. And then you get the sides, like your beans.
The beans are good.
Yeah. And you also get the flour tortillas or corn tortillas, your choice. And by the time you finish having a little bit of it, you're stuffed. And the other one there is like, where's the chicken? It's like, where's the beef? You know? So if anybody from Nando's is listening to us, bigger chickens. Okay.
Well, and Jeanette has made the Junior's cheesecake out of that one,
Yes.
which is magnificent, unless she has that recipe as well. I'll go through my last two quickly. One of them I'm going to bring up again when we have some recommendations, but Southern Living, my mom sent me that, and that is like a Taste of Home magazine.
Yep.
So mom got a collection, the 1995 collection of recipes, annual recipes. So they picked the best, and that's another one I will take out. And if I want something Southern or I want something special for Christmas or thing like that, there's always something I can count on there. And The Joy of Cooking, which I will talk about later, but there's a history with Julia Child and many, many different editions.
So, and then it went from Joy of Cooking to the Joy of Sex. So that's another.
Phil.
All right. So let's go on to our recommendations.
Okay.
All right. So, wedding gift.
Okay, I would go Joy of Cooking because it has everything you need in it. It has from pickling to how to roast a chicken. If someone's just out on their own for the first time, everything they could want is in that book.
Yeah. Well, I would say Martha Stewart is a great
Yep.
wedding because it's a great coffee book. It has great pictures. Same thing with the Silver Palette.
Okay, moving out.
Moving out where?
Home.
Oh, moving out of home.
Yeah, well, people do about 40 now.
Okay. Well, moving out of home now. Their cookbook is menu log.
That is true. Okay, I'd probably throw in my Betty Crocker or something very simple like that. First cookbook?
That's tough. First cookbook. Yeah, I can't tell you what would be my first cookbook. I mean, my first cookbook probably would have been the gourmet guy, the Grand Cœur. That would have been
the Galloping.
Yeah, the Galloping Gourmet. That would have been my first cookbook, but I don't know if I would recommend that to somebody else. But
I would recommend any Jamie Oliver book.
Yes.
Any of them.
Yeah,
are
because
great.
they're simple,
Yep.
they're quick.
And if you have someone that doesn't cook at all, I'd go the 15-minute meals because they are really achievable.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And how about old favorites?
Old favorites. I have an Italian cookbook with very few pictures.
Yes.
That has it's done by regions. So about 7 different
perfect.
regions. I go to that cookbook very, very often. That's my go-to cookbook. That's my old favorite.
Well, again, I'm going to double this. I'm going to go Joy of Cooking. I can't recommend it enough. Came out in 31. And then I got the latest edition last year. The grandson of the woman that published it originally updated it. So that will have every old favorite that you need.
Okay. And best place to find them?
Oh, well.
Well, you got the internet now.
Well, you do. So you can order anything. So, although it takes some while to get here. But if it's for, a special gift for someone that loves cooking, I would go to thrift shops or garage sales and find something really different other than a coffee table sort of book.
Yeah. But even the coffee table books at thrift shops, you spend a fraction of it.
Yes.
And they look at it once and gets dust after that.
I have got the most beautiful Neil Perry sort of coffee, this beautiful book that was a 40th birthday present for me. Yeah. And I will hit that as well. And I think is a good old favorite as well.
He's not one of my favorite chefs.
Oh, well, you are so particular.
I know. I'm sorry.
Well, the recipes all work out. What's your problem with him?
Lots. Okay. I have had some on Qantas, some disgusting food that he puts his name to.
Right. Okay. We might have to edit that bit out. Thanks, Qantas.
Yeah.
So, Phil, now it's time on that sour note.
It's sour. Okay, we'll be back with our secret code word. Well, welcome back after a bit of an air break. So the secret code word is book cook. Not cookbook, Cookbook.
That's right. And
Book cook.
and don't ask me later what it is later on in the week.
Book
Cook.
Thank you.
So you can use that online, or if you do a click and collect order and decide to come in and visit us in the shop, we are at 73 Cochrane's Road, Moorabbin, and our hours are Monday through Thursday, 10 to 5. Friday, we have late till 8. Saturday, 10 to 5. And Sunday, 11 till 4. And also, Phil, if people want to contact us, where can they do it?
They could do it online at
can.
podcast@usafoods.com.au.
And I would love to hear what people's favorite, I'm sure there's a bounty of cookbooks we have missed. Tell us what your favorites are, or maybe some stories about them. We would love to hear them. Now, one of our listeners, Serena, who we mentioned the other week, she has followed up with us because I don't know if she waited this long, but much like the Colorado waiting for a drive-through, she had a surprise drive-through wedding.
Surprise
In Vegas. And she organized it.
That is a surprise. Well, she was a surprise,
No,
but her husband was.
She thought the gentleman that she wanted to marry would love it. But she arranged it all without him knowing. So there's a few little sneaky emails to the wedding chapel.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to read this directly because I don't want to miss a bit. So this is in it. So she ended up telling her father, who was coming as part of the trip. The night before they planned the drive-through, we were at the very fancy Bouchon restaurant in the Venetian Casino. I've never been to Vegas, I have to admit.
That is a nice restaurant. I've been there. Very, very pricey.
I was pretty sure you
unfortunately, it tasted really good because I didn't have to pay that night.
Free food tastes even better. So she says, I had prearranged with the restaurant for the waiter to ask me if I had any other questions. Then I turned to Dave and said, yes, actually, I do. Dave, will you marry me? That's so romantic. I had this over-the-top, fake, huge diamond ring for him to give me, too. He finally calmed down and said yes. And I said, oh, yeah, by the way, it's tomorrow. The look on his face. He was so blown away. It was a lovely moment.
But, she also has to falsify an email from him.
Well,
so that's her way out. You know that.
That's true.
Because it's not legitimate. She falsified it. I don't know if Dave's listening to. Dave, you need to get out. She falsified you.
Oh, please. It's romance. You kill it all the romance.
Sorry. Yeah.
So she didn't tell him where we were going until the moment we got there. It was scheduled for 6 p.m. During the next day, we had to drive around Vegas and find our wedding bands. And she said it was actually hard to find wedding bands in Vegas. Maybe people use the ring top of Pepsi, because it's usually a drunk moment. And, we also had to go to the registry office and sign the legal stuff, so he signed it. So maybe it's still legit. Dave still didn't know where we were driving to until we got to the drive-through chapel. I was Facebook live streaming too, so all our friends could watch the antics. It makes for very fun viewing. We had a lovely celebrant, and Dad was there to film from the back. And I think that's
sweet.
Beautiful.
From the back seat, I guess.
Well,
it's drive-through. So it had to be the back seat.
And also, she has some recipe books that she got on her travels because she loves the States so much. I said, what are your favorites? And she has the Los Angeles cult recipes.
So cult recipes. So those are like...
I don't think it's Reverend Moon recipes. I think it's sort of cult restaurant.
Well, like they have Koreatown in L.A., right?
Yes.
So just make sure you go to the right one. You don't go to... You go to South Koreatown, not North Koreatown.
Yeah, that could be an issue. New York cult recipes. Bouchon by Thomas Keller. Oh, Thomas Keller, he owns the French Laundry in Sonoma.
A French Laundry?
That's a restaurant. It was, okay, it's all right.
So
okay.
Bouchon is butcher in French.
Well, there you go. I love Thomas Keller.
And his sister, or his aunt, Helen. Yeah, she can't cook. She cuts her fingers up.
Guy Fieri food.
Now, Guy Fieri.
Yes.
Speaking of Vegas.
Yes.
One of his good buddies there, and I cooked up with this guy when I was out there a few times. He makes great barbecue. I brought the hockey team out there. $14.95, 2 meats, sides, and everything. You get more than you want to eat, and for another $2, you get 3 meats. Right? It's all sitting outdoor. Been there for eons. It's called John Mulls. Mulls.
Right.
Yeah, John Mulls. Go there.
Any relation to Martin?
Martin Mule?
Mull.
Mulls. So go there. It's worth the trip. And he even told me that with Guy, he said, And I could like take him or leave him. Like I think he's like way out there, and he has his own restaurant also off the by the wheel, the High Rollers wheel. There's his own restaurant going into one of the casinos, and he became very good friends with him. So now whenever he goes out there to tape for somebody else, he calls him up and says, "Hey, let's go hang out for a little while."
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
I like when
So he's a nice guy. So there you go.
Well, he supports small business. He went to a few small places in my local area, which helped them, I'm sure. And she is a Rick Bayless fan like you. So she's got Authentic Mexican by Rick Bayless and Mexican Every Day by Rick Bayless. So thank you, Serena. We really appreciate you helping us out with that. Now, also, let's see. My mother. I'll just quickly say she didn't pick on me this week or you.
Oh.
But her favorite cookbook she wanted to jump in was the Frugal Gourmet. That is the old favorite. And one day I might steal it when I visit back. I'm not sure. And I think now it's time for a bit of Nat Nosh.
Ooh, just don't make me choose.
So going into our next segment, our favorite part. But before we do that, we've been talking about Alex Trebek. We love Alex Trebek and Jeopardy. Just recently, they taped the show before he passed away, and one of the categories was Yiddish saying. So the category for $400, Alex, sometime in the middle of the night, I'll head to the kitchen and do this for snacking, the Yiddish word for snacking.
What is nosh or noshing, Alex?
That is correct for $400. So let's get into Nat Nosh.
I think Alex is sort of our patron looking over us from a high.
I hope so. Somebody's got to look over us.
So today, 9th of December, is National Pastry Day.
What's bad about pastries?
Nothing. You know what I miss? I miss a bear claw.
Bear claw. That's a donut, ain't it?
No, it's not. It's like a Danish. So that's a pastry.
So is it Danish a pastry?
Danish is a pastry.
I'll tell you which pastry Jeanette and I miss.
What?
A prune Danish.
Oh, yes. I totally will give you that. Pastry is heaven. We don't see as much here as we should. Yes. I think maybe it's not accepted as a breakfast food as it should be.
Yeah. So, and on Thursday is National Lager Day.
What is a week without a boozy day?
Well, yeah. And lager is just there's different. There's a Pilsner, there's a lager, there's ales. And the only lager I was Wrangel is a lager. That's an old New York beer.
I don't know that one. I don't know. I do like a bit of beer. Not a problem. It's getting summery here, so it's beer season.
Yeah. And lager is more on the lighter side.
Yeah.
You don't want to do an IPA, an Indian Pale Ale. That's too heavy.
And I find the bitters here, like bitter beer, like VB, a bit. Yeah. I have a hard time getting through a whole one, although I've managed.
And Friday, is National Noodle Ring Day. What's a noodle ring day? What the hell
is that? Is that like a Kugel?
A noodle Kugel day?
That's a Kugel that's in a
noodle? I don't know. That's
in a ring mold? I don't know. We should probably. I like a Kugel.
It's a noodle. Yeah.
Okay, forget the 11th.
All right.
We're on to 12th.
Cocoa Day.
Yum.
Yeah, well, cocoa is like the base of chocolate.
That's right. So you can have hot cocoa. Mm-hmm. You can have cocoa powder to make really good frosting and cakes.
You could sprinkle it on things, on top of cakes.
Yes, there is. You just don't want to be like a little kid like I was once and stuck the spoon in the cocoa powder.
Oh, and then put it in your mouth?
Yeah, it's like tasting vanilla.
Yeah. Or it's like people that put that thing that's on the internet where they do it with cinnamon. You can't swallow it.
Kids, don't try that at home.
And the 13th?
Ice cream and violins day.
No.
Again, what the hell is that?
I don't know. We should have Googled this before we started. What is a violin? It must be a type of candy or something to do with a form of ice cream.
If someone knows, please let us know. I do like ice cream on its own, and I do like violins. So,
maybe you play a violin while you're eating an ice cream.
Maybe it's like a somber tone while you're having a sad ice cream.
So what's your favorite ice cream of the past?
I like mocha almond fudge. So I like butter pecan.
Butter pecan. Oh, yes.
And-
That's one thing we go back to America. We always buy Breyers
Yes.
butter pecan.
And probably there's a black walnut ice cream occasionally you see. And that is beautiful as well because it's sort of mapley. We kind of miss that here.
My favorite as a kid from was Mr. Softy. I used to like Mr. Softy, but Good Humor made, they had like toasted almond and of course all the people that came around with the little carts that sell it in the streets in New York on a Good Humor. You always made fun of how they pronounce things. And then you say, what was that one again? We had one lady that was a Good Humor lady.
Yes.
And she couldn't say almond, or she said it in a funny way. So we always kept on saying, do you have any of that? What's that toasted one? Oh, that toasted almond? Okay. No, I don't know. What was that again? So we would just drive her crazy. But my favorite Good Humor was Banana Sundae. They made a Banana Sundae ice cream pop. And it was just, and they also do a strawberry shortcake ice cream pop.
Well, that would be good.
I think they still sell that in the stores in America.
That would be. We actually heard the Mr. Whippy truck the other day.
First sounds of spring, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And I told my husband that I used to tell the kids all the rides at the mall were broken. I was like, when they play the music, it means they're out of ice cream.
Yes.
I'm a bit cheap. And then on Monday, we've got National Bouillabaisse Day.
Bouillabaisse is good.
It is
not the time of
so
year for it
good.
right now, but it's good.
Oh, and that's a dish that you want to order when you're near the water.
Yes.
I don't know if you want it in the middle of the country, but it is magnificent.
And on the Italian side, you're from Northern California?
I am.
Cioppino.
Oh, I love cioppino.
That's a little bit sweet sometimes of the times I've had it up there. I think they use sweet vermouth in it.
It depends. I need to break out a cioppino recipe, but you have a bib.
Yes.
And we actually have cioppino parties. So you get, you fill your garage full of tables and you invite 20 friends.
Oh.
Everyone puts in money.
Yep.
And you're in there cracking the shells and, putting it and cooking it together. And I was lucky enough to go to one of those, and it was so much fun. And
that little squeak I heard was not a bird.
No, that was the dog.
The dog with his little donut. He said, "You're talking food with pastry day." Yes. So just go on Bouillabaisse Day is in Huntington Beach. I used to go to an Italian restaurant over there, and they did sort of like a bouillabaisse or a cioppino, but their own version of fruta de mar.
Oh, yum.
Fruit of the sea. Oh, just absolutely fabulous.
I love that. I think now that the restaurants are opened up again, we might have to find a good seafood one to go to. And to finish up, Tuesday, the 15th of December, National Cupcake Day. Oh.
So many cupcakes.
There
so
is.
Little time.
That's right. I won't remind my youngest child after our visit when we went to the States.
Yes.
We made it to Sprinkles Cupcakes, who is that person, Candace, I can't think of her last name, First Cupcake Only Bakery. But yeah, it didn't fare too well with her in the car ride home. It was a very bad experience.
Yeah, it's
but
amazing how
going
cupcakes
down.
Graduated from Hostess cupcakes
That's right.
to all these fancy, smancy ones.
Well, and I think my brother-in-law put it well. He goes, a cake is about the cake. A cupcake is all about the frosting because there's such a ratio to it.
Well, tell me, because I did it.
Yes.
So when I got the Hostess cupcake at home, did you try just eating the little white swirly thing bites? Because it did come off by itself.
Yeah, you could pick it off.
Yes.
And then I would peel the chocolate off.
Oh.
And then I would
throw to us out.
and I would break it in half and eat the cream, and then I'd eat the cake.
Yes.
It lasted longer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. So that's about it for this week. That was a nice episode.
It was. That was fun. Now I feel like sitting and looking at all my books again.
Yep. So hopefully you all get inspired and go out and buy somebody a nice cookbook.
Yeah, it's a great gift, and it might be something they don't use right away, but they'll fall back on.
Yes. It's something that every time they open it up, they could think about you. So put your picture in the second page of it.
Or just sign it. That's a nicer thing to do.
Yes. All right. So next week's episode is about Christmas and cookies. Cookies. Yeah, I love cookies. So we're going to go. Is that copyrighted?
We won't talk about who the voice is, but yes, cookies. So an American.
Oh no, Mr. Bill.
Right, let's get some decorum back. I cannot believe this is happening. And Cookie's the great American tradition of... Sorry. The dog has taken over the whole podcast.
The studio.
The dog is running the studio at the moment.
He's
So,
also-
on that note, we will sign off.
Good night, Ralphie.
Oh my God, Ralph. I can't believe it. It's like, what kind of producer are you? You need to get him off the table.
Where are the doors on this studio?
That's a wrap.
That's all right.
Good God.